So hi, hello everyone, hello and welcome. Microbehunter here and Happy New Year. Happy New Year 2025. I'm just, before I get started, a little bit of housekeeping again. I'm just checking if everything is fine. At least I can see myself, I can hear myself. I hope that you can also see and hear me. Okay, let me see. Okay, seems to work. Okay, great. Yeah, I'm getting a lot of, we are getting a lot of New Year wishes here in the chat. Okay, and hello all around from the world, and also, of course, hello back. I'm just checking where I left my glasses. Here they are. Okay. Yeah, no, I think I'll, for right now, just leave them. Yeah. First of all, thank you for joining in again. Last week, for those of you who visited the channel last week, I was not around live, so I pre-recorded the video. Today I am live again, so this means that there is not a possibility for us to have a little conversation here. So I'm able to read the chat live, and if you have any questions, please feel free to ask. Please put an @Oliver or @Microbehunter into the chat so that I know that the comment or the question is directed to me. And after 1 hour approximately, I will try to answer the questions that are off topic. I also have to say the following. I don't know if you can hear it, but I do have a little cold and a pretty bad cough every now and then. So if I really have to cough, what I'll do is I'll quickly turn the sound off and I'll have a good cough and then I'll turn it on again. But yeah, I'm getting better. Just in case you're kind of wondering a little bit. I'll quickly read some of the comments and I'll tell you what I planned for today. As always, the topic is a little bit flexible depending a little bit into which direction we're going and which questions are coming here. Okay, I'm quickly gonna skim the thing here. Right at the beginning already, thin slices of thin cuts of stone. I cannot say a lot about that. So Jesse commented that. So that's an interesting topic. How do you make very thin cross sections of rock? Hello from Lebanon, from Belgium, Netherlands, England, Athens, in Greece. Okay, Northern Germany, Denmark. Why am I reading this? Because usually more people join in the first couple of minutes. Sound is good. Okay, from Australia, Colorado, the UK, Connecticut, UK, Belgium, France, Lithuania. Wow, really nice. France again. Okay. Put your mucus under the microscope. As a matter of fact, I've already done that before. No virus is visible, unfortunately, because light microscopes are not able to resolve viruses. Hello from Germany, Lithuania, Norway, London. Okay. So, from Finland. Yeah, so here we are again. What I would like to do today is the following. Maybe in the first part, a little bit of some technical stuff. Might not be completely new for all of you, but some people asked in the chat in the previous last week. A short question about, Darkfield and Rheinberg, and also a little bit about phase contrast. And just thought that I'm just going to quickly explain this, and I'm going to also show you some of those 3D printed Darkfield and Rheinberg filters that I made, because there was a question about the diameter of the central disk and how I determined that. Okay, so this is simply something that I would like to talk about. But in order to get this whole thing cleared up for maybe about 5 or 10 minutes, a short talk about phase contrast. Okay, I made separate videos some months and years ago in my other channel, but some of you might not have seen those yet. So I decided I'm just going to talk quickly about that because some folks actually had questions about this. And in order to do that, I will remove everything else. But I'll put those away here. Yeah. First of all, what we've got here is these are phase contrast condensers for my old Olympus microscope. So these are not manufactured anymore because these are for the old standard. And I just wanted to clarify one important point, and that's actually the reason why I thought I'm going to talk about this. Phase contrast it requires specific equipment. You need those condensers. And as a matter of fact, it's mounted beneath the stage, and by rotating this turret here, you can every objective has to have its own setting. Okay, and you need a specific phase contrast objectives as well. Okay, and I'm also going to show you then a little bit quickly, for those of you who have not seen it, how my own, well, not mucus, but how my own epithelium, the inside of my cells, how they look in phase contrast. I'm also going to show that to you. Okay, so very briefly, you need phase contrast objectives. And how do you know that you're actually dealing with phase contrast objectives? That is because they are labeled with a PL, this stands for positive low. Okay, and you know that you've got a phase contrast objective when you look in back here, and I don't know if you're able to see this. When you look through it, I need a white background. I'm going to just take, I don't know, some white tissue paper here. Okay, simply for the better contrast. You're able to see that there is a ring, on the inside, right? That's an important characteristic for phase contrast objectives. It's this ring in there. Yeah, and what phase contrast does, I didn't explain that yet, is it's good for transparent objects, like for example bacteria, which don't have a color, which are very difficult to see therefore, because the contrast is so low. And phase contrast converts clear objects like bacteria into a difference in darkness. So bacteria, even though they're clear, in reality appear dark on a brighter background in phase contrast. So it artificially, you call this optical staining, they call that. You introduce color. So it doesn't look like it's natural colors anymore, but basically it looks a little bit like grayscale, right? And so this ring that you've got in here is very critical, okay? And that's how you know that you've got a phase contrast objective. And I want to show you another one. This one was, I said, I want to try out a phase contrast. It was in my beginning days, and I said, I'm checking for a very cheap phase contrast objective. Found one here. This says also PL positive low. It says, wow, great. I've got a phase contrast objective now, which was very cheap. And when I opened it, and I looked from behind, I did not see the ring. It was actually, it's when you look through it, there is no ring visible, right? So I don't know why it was sold as a phase contrast objective. It was extremely cheap, but actually it's not. And even if it were, it wouldn't have helped me, because you need an appropriate condenser, and that's the other thing I want to talk about. Okay, so this is the thing, because when you look at it here on the bottom side, you're going to see that for each objective, there is also a ring here, okay? And the size of this ring must match the ring in the objective. Okay, so why am I saying this is because some people ask me, well, can I just mix them somehow? No, you cannot do that, right? You cannot just buy an objective from one system or standard and then the condenser from another one. It's not going to work, because the rings are not going to be the properly aligned, because you have to align them. Let me quickly close the window here, because I think somebody's cleaning up some snow on the outside. It's been snowing here, and so I was hearing the noise here. So this is basically the thing, and over here we also see that there are basically those rings here. This is one is when you turn this, it's difficult to see. One is for 10 times, the other one is for 40 times objective. But you've also got here, this one here is for dark field, and that's the regular bright field. So you can essentially rotate. Every time when you change the objective, you have to rotate this here. So why do I have two different kinds here? Because even though both of them are for Olympus microscopes, they're not compatible with each other. Isn't this interesting, right? So this one over here, the one made of metal, actually, is for the older system. And this is basically the short barrel objectives. And if you look carefully, I don't know if you can see it again, there should also be the phase ring inside here, visible, when you look into here, right? So basically, the old and the new Olympus systems are also not compatible with each other, right? So this makes everything a little bit complicated. I'm just saying this in case you want to buy used equipment, you got to be a little bit careful with that. But normally these days, if your microscope can be upgraded to phase contrast, and if you really want to do that, it's not always necessary, I have to say that. But if you really want to do that, then you have to make sure that basically everything's compatible, and usually they come together in a set. Okay, so I just wanted to clarify this for you because, yeah, for example, it's a 40 times objective here, and there's also 40 times. So that's that's the short barrel system. It has a so-called a conjugate distance of 185, and this one has a conjugate distance of 195. So it's a centimeter longer. Yeah? Even though they magnify at the same time, and even though both of them are 160 millimeters, have a barrel length. So you see, and they can also be put into the same microscopes. However, they're not compatible with each other. So you see, it's all very complicated, unfortunately. Yeah? And what you have to do, another thing here is that in phase contrast, once you've attached it, you have to center it. So the ring here has to be completely aligned with the ring in the objective, and you do that by actually moving by centering the condenser. And there are different ways how you can do that. So, for example, this one over here, you can shift this back and forth. It's barely visible, but it's shifting the whole thing. Yeah. I don't know if you're able to see this without. Yeah, maybe over here. Yeah. No, it's this one kind of moves it. Yeah. Forwards, backwards as well, and this one here as well, and then you can rotate those screws here to fix it in place, when everything is centered, and over here, this one can also be centered, but you need screwdrivers to do that, how do you actually know if it's centered and properly aligned? You know that because you have a so-called a phase telescope. You put this in instead of one of the eyepieces, and then you're able to see those rings. And when the ring of the objective and the ring of the condenser, when they overlap, then you know it's properly centered. So I just wanted to give this here, show it to you for those of you who have not seen this yet. I'm going to take now a minute or so to quickly read some of the comments if there are. Comments. Yes, there is one. I think PL also means plan objectives on some objectives. That's also correct. So that was actually also one of the things that I was thinking of. Maybe this PL actually over here refers to plan, but it was actually sold as a phase contrast. At least this was on the web page. Many of my lights objectives are PL and do not have phase contrast rings. I also have phase contrast lights objectives, and they are labeled PV. Interesting. Okay, thank you for that comment. There is not only a positive low but also a negative low, but the PL, the positive lows, are more common. Okay, so that's a little bit one of the difficulties that sometimes the labeling and the indications here are very company specific, and for this reason it might be a little bit difficult to actually figure out which objective it is. Okay. Yes, I think I know you from. Okay, I commented on something. So I'm just quickly. Would there be something interesting to see from animal tissues you can find at a butcher? Yes. For example, I don't have it right now here, but the muscle under the microscope is quite interesting. Because you can actually see the light and the dark bands. So I just wanted to quickly give you, because some people had a question about this, about the compatibility of the condensers with the objectives, and I'm saying you got to be really careful here. You cannot just mix different objectives and condensers. They have to fit, otherwise the size of rings are not going to match. Okay, so that's basically just very briefly something I wanted to share with you. Okay, just so that we also do a little bit of observation, just for the fun of it. I know sometimes things become a little bit repetitive, but you know what? I quickly have to put them away so that I'm not spilling anything over them. Let me put them over here on the table. Okay, because water and objectives and all of these solvents are not really compatible with each other. So you have to be super careful that you don't spill anything over. You never know what's going to happen. So, okay. I'm just going to quickly show you something under phase contrast using my other microscope here. And you probably already know what I'm going to do. Okay. I'm going to have them here just a second. Yep, here we go. One of the nice things to observe a little bit, and it's also another reason because I'm going to actually also put them under the microscope for dark field. Yeah, so that's also a little bit of a preparation for the next topic, which are those filters here. I'm just going to quickly put some of my cheek cells under the microscope. Just a second. Okay, so there are plenty of cells here. Spread them over. So you rotate it a little bit. There should be enough cells on here. I throw this away. I need a little bit of water, of course, in over here. Just a second. I'm going to add a little bit of water here. This water bottle here, I'm in the process of making another video just about this water bottle. I'm going to quickly also tell you why. You add a little bit of water here. Of course, you see there's a reflection of the lamp. I'm going to turn this lamp off. And of course, you want to add a cover glass. Then let's see if we are able to find a couple of cells. Of course we are. Let me quickly find some here in my microscope here. Let me have a look here. Square scope. Here we go. Let me quickly, I cannot reach that. So I have to find now, I hope that I've got, yeah, there are plenty of cells here. This is, by the way, this is DIC. Let's have a look now. This is in bright field. It's a little too bright. Yeah. So, I mean, this is something that many of you already know. I'm just, for those of you who are not familiar with this, these are what you see over here. Where's the arrow here? Why can't I move the arrow? Here, now I can move it. Yeah, these are basically all of my these are cheek cells, right? And you see that they're fairly bright. Yeah, also the contrast, I mean, they're visible, but the contrast is not specifically high. These are air bubbles, those round things here, so you ignore those. Okay, so, and I'm going to now show you the whole thing in phase contrast so that you have seen this as well. So it's a 40 times phase contrast. I have to now rotate also the phase annulus into position. I have to turn up the light intensity, open the condenser, okay, and up, I bumped into, here we go. Here we go, and it's of course much bigger now because the magnification is much higher. Okay, so, and what we have here now is you have, over here that's a cell, yeah, 3 of my cheek cells, lots of other stuff floating around here. Not so interesting, but I think you get the idea that right now it's much more visible. I'm now going to remove the phase annulus here, and that's now regular bright field. Okay, and you see that it's exactly the same picture, but the contrast is much lower, right? You still see the 3 cells over here, but so that's basically how you would see it in regular bright field, and in phase contrast now. Yeah, I have to open this. It looks like this, right? So this is the reason why, of course, Fritz Zernike, who back in the day, who invented phase contrast, he got the Nobel Prize in Physics for this invention, because this allowed scientists now to study living cells, because chemical staining would have killed the cells, but now you were able to see actually certain things that you were not able to see before. Okay, so this is basically, by the way, that's the only phase contrast objective that I've got in my microscope here, right? So, and what I would like to do now is, I would like to now have a look at this using yet another technique, which is dark field. Okay, so, then I'm going to show you why I actually have those here later, because I've got a whole bunch of other slides here as well. Yeah, those plastic slides which are falling now on my floor, and which I have to pick up now. Okay, here we go. So I have to put them away here to make a little more space. Okay, so let's quickly, we're not going to forget about those here. I would like to go back to the desk view. Okay, and okay, there are lots of comments again. I'm going to read them in just a minute or so. And I would like to now answer a couple of questions about those Darkfield and Rheinberg filters. Okay, I have to cough now a little bit. So now I feel better again. So very briefly, there was the question about the following. And first of all, with my microscope that I have, I do not have, I've got this condenser turret, but I'm not able to insert this. So what I've got here next to me, I set up my second microscope, which is a Swift 380T. Okay, so this is a fairly common low-cost microscope. And this microscope can easily be upgraded with those basically homemade filters. And these are, and as we 3D printed those, however, you can make them yourself simply by taking some clear plastic and making the central part black. And the question is now the following, where this was the essential question, is how big should, for the Swift 380T microscope, how big should the diameter be? I determined this experimentally, so you see that I've made different filters here with different sizes of these are called the patch stops, and I decided I'm going to have a 12 millimeters. And with a 12 millimeters, I'm able to get dark field for 4 times and 10 times. Yeah, I've also, you can see, I don't know if you're able to see this here. Yeah, I've actually also 3D printed the number in the diameter here on top so that I know what it is. Yeah, so that's basically dark field. We're gonna just have a look at how these cells look like in dark field. So this one is a 12, I think, 12 millimeter one, and those here, that's a slightly larger one, is 17, and those here I've 3D printed with different colors. Because this was another question is how can you get some kind of a different background color, right? And again, I'm going to show you with my microscope here that in my case, if you do it like this, no, that's the wrong objective. Yeah, you see that I'm able to get a colorful background. The technique is entirely different. I'm using polarized light and it's called DIC. But if you also want to get some colors, you can use those color filters here. And I just want to show you now how this actually looks like. And what I have to do now is I have to switch over to the other microscope. I'm hoping that this works now. Yes, and I've got already, you see, blue, because I've got a blue filter in place. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to switch on the other camera. See, and this is now the camera from my other micro. I'm going to rotate the camera over so that you see, this is the microscope, the small one here that I'll be using. And down here, well, you cannot see that, there is a filter holder, and I'm going to take it out, then basically, yeah, I can, yeah, it's a flip out filter holder. So now let's see how those cells look like, yeah, using this here, and don't be disappointed, because you're probably going to also see a lot of dust and dirt. Okay, so this is how it looks like, and let me focus this. Yeah, and what you're able to see here, and I know it looks a little bit blurry, but yeah, you're also able to see those white cells. So, and you see that the background here is not completely black, but it's dark blue, and that's because I used one of those homemade 3D printed blue filters. Okay, let's switch it out for green. Okay, and I just wanted to demonstrate this to you that yeah, if you want, this was a little too, yeah. No, it's green. Okay, yeah, you get the idea. And if you really want to have the maximum contrast, you switch it out for black, because then the background becomes obviously black. Yeah, and then it looks like this. Yeah, and this is now called dark field, obviously. That's one of the easiest modifications that you can do to a microscope. And if your microscope has a filter holder, then this actually should work. However, people have told me that they have a problem with that, because sometimes they only see a dark black spot and everything else is bright. Okay, so just make sure that the condenser is all the way to the top. Okay, and the size, and you have to really determine this experimentally. The size of the central patch stop, yeah, is really critical, right? Even if it's a little bit off, then the background is not going to be completely dark. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to now leave this in here, and I'm going to show you now what happens when I switch up now from the 4x to the 10x, and yeah, we still see this, right? No problem so far. But now let's go up one yet further to the 40x, and look what happens now. The background is not black anymore. Okay, that is a little bit of a disappointment, you might think. And the reason is that the higher the magnification, for the higher magnification, the central patch stop, the central disk must be larger. Okay, so ideally, if it's too large, then everything's going to be too dark. If it's too small, the background is not going to be black. Yeah, so this is going to be extremely dark. Now I'm going to now exchange it with a larger one. Okay, but again, this is going to be this is a very difficult specimen, because now everything is so dark. Okay, let me look through it. Actually, I'm able to, when looking through the microscope, I'm able to see the cells right on a dark background, but the camera itself is not able to actually is not that light sensitive enough. Yeah. So with a higher magnification, we already have lower light, and then we're taking yet away more light by adding basically such a large patch stop. So that's why I say dark field is probably always a good idea. Or also Rheinberg with the colors is probably a good idea up to magnification of with a 10 times objective. And now I'm going to really take a couple of minutes time to read some of those questions here. Okay, yeah. So it's snowing here too. Okay, yeah. So I'm just going to go through those which are actually relevant. Is the condenser objective compatibility something to worry about for non-phase contrast setups? Generally not. Well, generally not. Normally, so basically, if you don't have a phase contrast, setup, then you have to get anyway a condenser that matches with the objectives, because it already comes with a microscope. So there shouldn't be a problem here. And if you now want, for whatever reason, want to change to different condenser, it's probably not going to fit physically. Okay, so that's simply something I wanted to. So the problem for the regular objectives is probably not given, right? So because normally you don't go out around exchanging condensers. Yeah. So you can also get Darkfield specific condensers, but that's a whole other thing. That is correct. There are specific Darkfield condensers, and they basically are quite expensive. What I'm doing right now, or what we're doing right now here, is we're blocking out the main light and only using the reflected light. But there are specific condensers out there that have concave mirrors built in, which redirect the light completely. Yeah, so they will essentially should give a much brighter image, because there is no light blocked away but completely redirected. So it works with concave mirrors, which are in the condenser. This is not even, I think they're not even available for all microscope models. This is pretty advanced stuff, highly specific uses. Yeah, so probably not something that for the average hobbyist this would be an issue. So let me quickly here, Microbehunter. I would love a video on samples you can get from different items found in food stores and how to turn them into permanent slides for those of us wanting to make our own collection. Thank you for the recommendation. Why not? Okay, I'll think of something here. Simply readily available vegetables, whatever, and how to convert them into permanent slides. Yeah. Do you have a 10 times bright field 20? So what I have over here, it depends which microscope you're looking at. In my big microscope, I have only a 40 times phase contrast. Okay, and then I have regular bright field objectives for 4 times, 10 times, 20 times, 40 times, 60 times, and 100 times oil. So I have a total of, I didn't even count them yet. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 objectives connected. Yes, and that's on my big microscope. I've got 7 objectives. Yeah. So, Servus Oliver. Okay, somebody writes me in German. Ich melde mich aus der Steiermark. Okay. Yes. Yeah. Best greetings from Oberösterreich. Yeah. I'm living in Upper Austria, so we're just a couple 100 kilometers away. Okay. Yeah. So I'm just going to skip over here again. Phasenkontrasts. Okay. Documentation for the 380T is crap. Honestly, I think the documentation of many microscopes can be improved. I have to be very honest about that. I've seen quite a few documentations already. And I have to tell you that some of the documentation that I have read of some microscopes actually contained very misleading, incomplete, sometimes even slightly wrong information, right? So this is a little bit a pity, I have to say. Yeah. So, but let's put it this way. Let's see the positive sides as well. I mean, those microscopes like the one that you see up here, yeah, this one, the Swift 380T, I mean, costs what, around 300 euros or so. This was unthinkable several years ago. I mean, when I finished university, I bought myself, as a present to myself, a microscope, an Olympus CH40. I mean, it was a fortune. And simple, cheap microscopes at that time simply were not available yet. So they're being mass produced. Some people complain about the quality of those microscopes, sometimes rightly so. But on the other hand, you can do microscopy with those. And that's the positive thing. What are you saying? You need a diametrically adjusted patch stop for each magnification? Yes and no. Okay, let me quickly go back to this here. The thing is the following: if the patch stop over here is too small, then the background will not be black. So it's got to have a minimum. It's got to have a minimum size for the black background to be black. So if it's however too large, if you make it, then the foreground image, the cells are going to be too dark. So it's kind of a trade-off. So what you want to have ideally, under ideal conditions, is you want to have a patch stop which is adjusted for each objective, which is not bigger than necessary. If it's bigger, the background's going to be dark. Fine, that's great, cool. But at the same time, the image is going to be darker than necessary. Maybe I can illustrate this using my, the camera has to switch on again. Okay, so let's just for the purpose, let's exchange this again. Let's take the 12 times. Okay, I'm just checking it because I prepared over here also a water flea. Okay, in case people might start to feel a little bit bored with those cells from my mouth. Let me quickly add another drop of water. Where is this here? Because people sometimes want to see some fun things as well. Okay, so I decided, why not put a water flea here, just as a demonstration object. Yeah. Where is it? Where is it? Here it is. Okay, just something for a change, you know. Okay, that's now 4 times. Okay, 4 times objective, and you see that the background is dark. So that's fine. The foreground, the water flea is bright. That's also fine. Let's put the arrow away. Okay. So, and I'm going to now go up with the magnification, right? And basically, for this magnification, the background is still black. So that is fine, right? So it's basically large enough. However, the foreground, the water flea, still visible. No, at a very high magnification, but it could be brighter if the central patch stop were a bit smaller. Okay, And if I now were to go up to the next higher magnification, which I'm not going to do because otherwise I'm going to dip the objective into the water, okay, then the background would not be black anymore and I would have to change out the patch stop. So this one was a 12 millimeters. That's why I've chosen 12 millimeters, works for the 4 times and the 10 times objective. Yeah, so I don't have to switch out. Yeah, so that's kind of, it works into one direction, so to say, the patch stop. If I could put in a significantly larger patch stop, then it would work for all objectives, but then how do you say, even at the lower magnifications, it's going to be too dark, right? So let's go back again to the 4 times here. Yeah, here that's, I've got 2 water fleas, a big one and a small one here. Yeah. So that's kind of the idea. By the way, the reason why what I actually wanted to show you here is also if we make it blue, then it looks a little bit, how do you say, yeah, also kind of nicer, like a little bit more like watery. Yeah. So that's because some people wanted to know how can they add a little bit of color, yeah, to the microscopic image. Yeah. So let me. Yeah, so I'm just reading again. Yeah, and reflected light and polarization, fluorescence, and actually all contrast methods. I'm thrilled. Okay, reflected light. You need a flashlight, so to say. That's the easiest way, or a stereo microscope. Polarization. I've done videos about that. That works. Fluorescence, I cannot do. Okay, there is a possibility to do limited so-called autofluorescence. Basically where you're using near UV light, and then you can make the chloroplasts shine, or it's called also blue light excitation. So some algae you can actually make shine in blue light, and they start glowing red, but this is very faint, and you have to have long exposure times over the camera and so on. So doing fluorescence microscopy at home is I would say slightly on the more advanced. Yeah. So larger disk for higher magnifications is the exact opposite. Yes, you need a larger disk for the more higher magnifications because this has to do with what's called the numerical aperture. Because the lens is much closer to the objective, and the angle that the light exits is wider, and therefore you basically need a larger disk. And that's of course a problem. At a higher magnification, you already have a low light. Because you have a higher magnification, and then you need a larger disk, which takes away even more light. So that's a little bit of unfortunate. Yeah. Is a dark field condenser a real thing? Yes, it is a real thing. Of course, it's a real thing. And I've seen some dark field condensers, apparently, that have nothing more than just a ring like this included. So it's not a real dark field condenser, I think. But the good dark field condensers, which are only, I think, brand microscopes have, yeah, they have those concave mirrors built in, which basically completely redirect the light. And they must be pretty expensive. Yeah? But then I can imagine possibly that you can also get dark field with very high quality dark field with a big contrast, maybe also for the high numerical aperture objectives, 40 times, 60 times, and so on. Yeah? So, but this is kind of I would say the most common way of doing dark field. Yeah? So I remember when I bought my first Olympus microscope back in the year 1998 already, I also ordered a dark field patch stop, which looks made out of metal. Yeah, I remember that's the only thing I ordered. It came in a huge box, yeah? And basically it worked perfectly fine. Yeah, so let me quickly have a look here. So my experience, the diameter of the central circle should be between 16 and 18 millimeters, works at 4 times. Yes, 16 and 18 millimeters. This was for my Olympus microscope. This one again here is different. I don't know what this depends on entirely. I would suggest that you determine this experimentally. Yeah. A live stream about gradient filters. Oh, thank you for asking. Look what I tried to do here. And unfortunately, I'm not, here. Where's this image? This here is, yeah, one which is, and you might not be able to see it, but it's actually thicker over here than over here. So actually I wanted to have a light blue to dark blue gradient. Okay, this was my intention here, and when looking through the eyepiece of the microscope, you can actually see this gradient a little bit. But with a camera, because the camera only takes a small image from the center, and because the image quality of the camera is not so good, you don't see a huge difference. But actually, I did try to do that. I probably have to do this a little bit stronger. Okay, so work in progress. Yeah, but that's actually one of my intentions, was actually indeed to have a light blue to dark blue background, or maybe with 3D printing, I don't know if, or maybe using some markers or so, it might be possible to actually go from one color to the other color. As I said, work in progress. Okay. Okay, so that's basically all of the comments right now. I hope it didn't overlook anything, right? So yes, so this is, let's see how where are they? Let's see how the little guys are doing here. Oh yeah, still here. Those water fleas, there's an easy way to make them stop moving around, and that is you don't use a lot of water. As soon as they're able to swim, then they sense that and they also move more. Yeah. Of course, you know that here, this in the back here is the heart beating. Over here, there are eggs in here in the back. That's the so-called the brood pouch. And here, that's a baby one, which is not a baby anymore. Yeah, another thing I wanted to talk about. Okay, good that I see that over here. And that's actually, I'm in the process of actually making a separate video, and that has to do with the so-called the dynamic range of a camera. People have been asking me also, well, don't you think that in the future we won't need to look through a microscope anymore, because we will do all of the microscopy over a camera system? And my answer to that is, well, there are already microscopes around that essentially depends on your workflow, what you need it for, that basically you only work over a computer screen. So this already does exist. However, it's a huge however. However, with a camera, you're never able to get the richness of color as if you were to look through the microscope yourself. And specifically, you're not yet able to get the so-called the dynamic range, and I would like to explain this a little bit. What you see over here is, and that's one of the reasons why I had to install a DSLR over here, because I actually wanted to use my HDMI camera, but the image quality was so bad, and I want to explain this to you a little bit. Okay. If you look at this water flea, the tiny one over here, and if you look at the, no, it's moving way too much, but if you look at the body, you're going to see that the body of this water flea, the tiny one, is actually completely overexposed. Okay, it's completely white. Yeah, now it's getting a little bit better, huh? But it's very overexposed and lacking detail. You know what? I'm going to make the effect stronger by exchanging it with a Darkfield filter, because then it might be better visible. Let's have a look. Okay, here we go. Yeah. Very few details are visible in the body because it's overexposed. The camera will take the average brightness of the image, and it will basically then decide on either an ISO setting, a sensitivity setting, a gain setting, or exposure time. And in this case, the camera thinks, well, the background is so dark, so I'm going to go up with the exposure time, and then essentially the body of this water flea becomes overexposed and is too white. So what you can now do essentially is you can say, okay, then I'm going to manually go down with the exposure. I'm going to manually go down with the brightness by making the exposure time shorter. However, with some cameras with a low dynamic range, what's going to happen is that you're still not going to see details, because everything's just going to become gray. Yeah, and the camera is not able to resolve both bright and dark areas at the same time because of a limited dynamic range. If I, for example, look through the microscope right now, I see details in the dark area in the background and the details of the water flea. But the camera is not able to both cover the bright and the dark areas equally well at the same time because of a limited dynamic range. Yeah, and over here it's still kind of okay, but with my other HDMI camera that I have, industrial camera, the dynamic range is so low that the water flea would be completely white. And if you go down with the exposure time, if you go down with the exposure time, then the water flea is just going to go into gray and you're still not able to see details. Yeah, so that's a little bit the whole issue, and that's why I had to set up the whole thing with my other camera here, so that we're able to at least see something. Using Darkfield. Yeah. So let me quickly. There are a couple of more questions. How much does it take to set up DIC? Does it take a specialized microscope to achieve that? Yes. Yes, DIC takes a specialized microscope, because you need a lot of light. It's extremely light hungry, DIC, number one. You need a polarizer, you need two Wollaston prisms, one beneath the stage, one above the stage, and you need at least fluoride objectives, which are and also objectives which basically are manufactured to sufficiently high quality so that they do not depolarize the light, and all of this adds up. So, and for this reason, what I would recommend, what people have done already before, is to keep the cost a little bit down, is to buy second-hand DIC equipment. Okay, you got to be a bit patient. But that is probably the most cost-effective way. Yeah. So otherwise, it's quite expensive. And however, it's not always needed. I've actually seen some pictures online where people compared DIC, which with a so-called oblique illumination, and those folks fine-tuned the oblique illumination to the extent that you could actually, it was excellent. Yeah, the image quality was really nearly comparable. Yeah, so let me quickly. Shiny dark patch. I found that a shiny dark patch doesn't work well. It reflects too much light. A flat back patch is much better. Yes. Let me quickly tell you the following, where you have to be a little bit careful. Let me go back to the desk view. With that, you have to be a little bit careful. I'm just checking the time. That when you have a microscope that has halogen light, okay, please be aware that the halogen is a very hot light, and that basically these filters heat up. Okay, so just be careful that they don't melt. I'm talking from experience here. I was actually lucky. I actually used so-called foil, transparent foil, that I made dark with a marker, and but it was luckily a photocopyable foil, so it was heat resistant. But when I took it out, it was very hot because of the halogen lamp. And the second thing is if it's too shiny, and if it reflects the light from the lamp back to the lamp, then it might cause an overheating of the lamp. So just be careful that when using halogen, that essentially that you do not cause an overheating. Okay, just saying. Yeah. How to make multicolored filters? There's a book. Oh, I didn't know that book. How to make multicolored filters: Rheinberg, polarizing, Darkfield, and oblique. There's a book recommendation here. Thank you very much. I might actually get it. Okay. I didn't know about this book. Can you tell us which model DSLR you're using, how you connect the HDMI to your computer, and why HDMI and not USB? Thank you. You know what? I'll answer these questions later because they're a little bit off topic right now, and I want to have a few questions to be answered later. There's so much to say about this, I could actually make a full live stream. Yeah. Accidentally, I got a 6 objective Fluotar Wild. I did not check it yet, but is Fluotar for fluorescence or for DIC? I don't know. Fluotar looks very much like fluorescence to me, and usually many of the microscopes, also wild, as it's called, at that time, depending on the model, were modular and could be adapted and fit with different objectives and filters and so on. Yeah, so it depends a little bit. So it's like this, that these objectives are modular. Okay, so Yeah, so I'll talk about the camera. I can tell you I've got two Canon cameras here that I've connected. The reason why I chose Canon or Nikon, because the so-called the T2 adapter rings are easier to get. I'll talk about that. Okay. So the next thing that I want to do is yeah, we've got. I just wanted to let me. Here it is. Okay. I just wanted to show you a couple of other specimens here. Okay, so that's the water flea, which I'm gonna return back into the jar. Okay, so that we have seen also something alive. This is a little bit of dust. Okay, this is now all in Darkfield. And there's another interesting thing that I want to talk about in Darkfield, something that you might not have known. With Darkfield, it'll be so, and let me explain now. With Darkfield, it is possible to see, theoretically, it's possible to see objects that are below the resolution limit of the microscope. That's interesting, right? How is that possible? How is it possible to see? Well, you're not able to see any structural details of the object. All you're seeing is if there's an object there which is able to reflect light sufficiently well, that you're able to see a so-called a diffraction pattern. Yeah. So you see that something is there even if the diameter of the object is lower than the resolution limit. Okay, so this is essentially one of the reasons why Darkfield, like this one, is so extremely sensitive to dust, dirt. Anything that's a little bit on the microscope slide is immediately reflected, and then you have a lot. The image does not always look very clean. Okay, so I just want to show this to you here. You can already see it over here. Do you see those bright spots here in the background? Right. Yeah, somewhere in the light path there must be a little bit of dust, and this basically results in those blurry spots. Maybe I can try to focus them. See, now they come into focus. Yeah, so they were somewhere either on the cover glass or beneath. Yeah, and immediately you're able to see them because of the high contrast. Yeah? So this is a little bit of a trade-off or a disadvantage. On the one hand, you get a nice contrast, obviously. On the other hand, the contrast can be so high that even things that do not belong there actually start to show up. Look, for example, this spot over here. Yeah, this spot over here, it doesn't even move. Let me move this so it's not. You see, it's somewhere in the light path. There's a little bit of dust, maybe on the condenser or I don't know. Yeah, and that's basically something that you have to be aware of. So that's a little bit of dust, which I collected back in the day. Kammertierchen and Foraminifera. Okay. Yeah, so you'd have to, it's basically a sand sample, and you've got to check them. Forams are the calcium carbonate shells of some amoeba or amoeba-like organisms. Yeah, so I'd have to check them, but kind of shows that it looks kind of nice, obviously. So not all specimens are equally suited. This one here are radiolarians. These are one of my favorite ones. And this is actually a nice example because it kind of shows you what it means if something is overexposed, right? Yeah. And if I were to, we can go up a little bit now with and this basically means that, when I now look through the microscope itself, it looks perfect. Yeah, I see all of the details, but the camera is not able to resolve the details of the bright areas. And if I go down somehow with the exposure, I don't know even how to do that. No, it won't do that. Okay, then I will still not see the details in the bright areas. Yeah. Okay. Okay, I'm just reading the comments here again. Yeah. So that's basically radiolarians. This here is wood. This here is wood. I just have to find it. Okay. Talking about wood, let me quickly. I'm just looking through the microscope now. Here, this is the one that I actually wanted to find. Okay. And one of the things that you can make here, look, if you are moving the filter, you see, you can actually adjust the angle of the light coming from the side, which will give it a slightly, it's called oblique illumination, which will give it a slightly, 3D effect, almost like in DIC. Yeah? So that's something that you can do with a swing out filter holder by just moving it around a little bit. Yeah. So there are plenty of things to play around with. Yeah. And the other one, these are pollen grains. Here. Okay, I have to put the filter back in, and this is how it looks like. Yeah. So let me put the arrow again away. Yeah. I mean, you get the idea. Yeah. Yeah. So essentially, plenty of things to play around with. So I spent more time on this than I actually intended to spend because actually I wanted to, and I'm going to show you this. I just wanted to show you what I originally planned to do and why it didn't work out. Okay, so I'm just for a couple of minutes switching topics. Okay, and this is really frustrating. What I'm going to show you right now is really frustrating. Where is this? No, that's wrong. I need the desk. Here we go. You might remember, some of you, some months ago, last year, I don't know. I made a live stream of this as well. I bought those super cheap plastic slides. Okay, I think for 12 euros or something like that. And I said, I just here already tried to cut something out. I just wanted to say, okay, how good are they? Because some of those specimens in here were actually quite interesting. Yeah, I didn't have them. Yeah, carnation stem, for example. Yeah, what do we have here? A lotus root. The wings of a fly. Okay, not so interesting. I've got plenty of those. Now, basically, what I wanted the scale of a goldfish, but I just want to show you a little bit of maybe using this here, the lotus root as an example here. What I wanted to do is I wanted to remount those slides. So basically, I wanted to take the specimen out and put it on a proper microscope slide, on a glass slide. And then I found this was very difficult because it's so fragile. And then I found out what in the world they have done. I'm just going to show this to you. I'm going to put it under the microscope now. So I'm going to switch over to my main microscope. I have to flip the camera system over here so that you see a little bit of what's going on here. Okay, let's turn the arrow off. Okay, let's take and look. Just look at the stage. Look at this. It's so small that it's not even held properly in place. Okay, so okay. This is a frustrating thing, not a huge problem. Yeah, if you want to move it around, you just put a regular slide in here. Of course, the distance is a little bit different now. But at least I can place this on here now, and we can now have a look. You know what, I'm going to move the other microscope out of the way. And we can now have a look at... Let's turn this down. I have to refocus. Okay. And this is how it looks like. So I'm going to explain to you now. So this here, what you see is the on the plastic slide there is this sticky sticker. Here now, this is the specimen. And basically what you have is you have this plastic sticker which covers the whole slide on top. And then look at this here. The actual specimen here is somehow embedded in this other thing, square thing over here. And I was kind of wondering, what in the world could that be? There are some bubbles included, and it's not quite clean either. And then I found out what it is. Yeah, so it's what in the world is this here? Okay. I mean, here at least we're still able to see at least a little bit. I mean, the quality is still pretty bad. Yeah, I have to keep carnation stem. Let's have a look at this here. And let's have a look at this here. Look at this. I mean, this is... You cannot even see the cells, right? But look here too, because don't forget it doesn't have a cover glass, right? Here too, the cross section of the stem is actually embedded in something, and I was kind of wondering what could that be, right? And then I've basically done the following. I heated it up, the slide. Why did I heat it up? So that because I wanted to get the sticker off. So what I've done is I cut a little, like over here. I cut using a sharp knife. I cut the sticker. I put it on my coffee warmer, to kind of warm the glue. So and it really went off very easily. But then I discovered what this is here. That what you see over here is wax. And I tell you what they have done. So what you see here, all of this stuff here is wax, and which melts. Okay? So what they have done is they have embedded, like you're supposed to do, they have embedded the specimen in a block of wax. They have microtomed it, cut it into thin cross sections, and then the next step would be that you put it on a proper slide and then you remove the wax using a solvent. They have not done that. They've simply kept it embedded in the wax and put a sticker over it and put it on the slide. And that's not the way how you prepare specimens. I mean, I get it. These are cheap kids' slides. But that's what you get when you don't remove the wax. Yeah, it's practically you don't see anything. Thank you. I just received the questions again. Your questions. Okay. So this is the reason why the remounting was not possible, because even if I melt the whole thing becomes so unstable that essentially I cannot transfer it to a new slide. And the whole thing is sticking on the sticker. So I don't know how to get it off. Yeah, so that's a little bit the sad thing. So remounting here in this case is going to be a very difficult task. Why would I try to do that? Simply for educational purposes, for myself a little bit, because I want to figure out how this works. But look at this. I mean, this is a disaster. There's even an air bubble here. This air bubble seems to be between the sticker and the cross section of the specimen. Yeah, I mean, yeah. So that's a little bit the thing here. And what you see as well, let's go down. Yeah. These are basically, that's the wax, the paraffin wax, which makes these patterns. If you melt a candle and put the wax under the microscope, it looks exactly the same thing, same way. Yeah. So that's a little bit the challenge here. So how am I going to get the whole thing off? And how to make it proper, because of course you can use solvents like xylene, which are harmful. You shouldn't, but they might actually also dissolve the plastic. Yeah, and so that's a little bit a pity what I have, that I'm not able to, process those slides. Excuse me. Okay. So just saying, so this was actually my original plan for today, is that I remount those slides until it's discovered it's not going to work. Okay. So let's have a look here. Okay, I'm going to just check if there's anything so far. There are a couple of... I had seemingly bland, lifeless slides, but with a Darkfield filter, I could see the presence of bacteria. It was teeming with them. Yes, because bacteria have a low contrast, but they do have a different refractive index. And for this reason, you're able to see them better. Hmm? For my oil objective, can I use cooking oil? You should not. Probably it wouldn't damage the objective. I don't see a reason why it should. But the oil should have the proper refractive index, and I don't know, cooking oil does have the tendency to be very sticky. Maybe it's a little bit too thick. I mean, that's a little bit the question. I know they have made objectives, immersion objectives that work both for water and for oil. And I don't see a reason why it should not work. Okay. but it might have the wrong refractive index. But I probably would get myself still immersion oil. Oh, here, Jesse is answering. Technically, if it's a sealed lens, then probably yes, depending on the material it's sealed with, whether or not you should, I'm unsure. Yeah, so the danger or the worry, the issue could be is, could it kind of damage the seal or the glue, which kind of holds the lens in place? This was, I always would play it safe. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I'm reading. Microphone. When I hear I should have a condenser raised all the way, does that mean until it's just barely under the slide? When I raise it to the topmost position, it raises. No, it should not. It should not. Then if the condenser should not lift or should not lift the slide. Okay, that might be then the question of the tolerances, right? So basically, it should be flush. The top condenser lens and the slide should be basically on one level. Yeah. So no questions here. So what I will do now is I will go through some of the, unless I've already answered them. Okay, plenty of questions here. So let me go, quick through those questions over here. What time is it? It's already, it's fine. I just got a new microscope for Christmas. I never wanted a microscope until I looked into one for the first time to realize the small things that make this world beautiful. Yes, that's why microscopy is a hobby. I've been, or I still am, interested also in astronomy. I think both of these hobbies, amateur astronomy and microscopy, are to a certain extent related because it's nature observation. I'd like to add to the theme of the topic, thin cuts of stone, and those are prepared if you know about them. My understanding is that they're cut and ground and polished. What I read somewhere is that the rock or the stone is embedded in, usually using epoxy. So it's stabilized and then glued on a slide and then basically polished down until it's very thin. And then it's mounted. So I'm fine again. I've got a little cough. So that is indeed, it's got hard objects have to be polished down. A couple of months ago, I made a video about the spines of a sea urchin, which are made of calcium carbonate, also very hard and brittle, and how they have actually ground it down. Would there be something interesting to see animal tissues that you find in the butcher? Yes, but histology like this, the specimens have to be prepared, and this takes time. So essentially, I've not done this a lot, really, because it requires microtoming and paraffin embedding, and it's a complex task. However, some things can be seen directly as well. If you want to see animal tissue, then there are fairly low-cost microscope slides available, properly stained and so on. So it's a question of debate of whether it's, under quotation marks, worth it actually processing animal tissue, because it is kind of time intensive and laboratory intensive. But then if you want to do it as a hobby, I mean, of course. Okay, plan. Yes, we talked about this. Okay, that PL can not only mean positive low, but also plan. I would love a video on samples you can get from the different items from the food store. I talked about that. Okay. This is something I gotta translate somehow. Okay, from Styria. Okay, he bought himself a Reichert Zetoplan. It's a huge research microscope. With a negative phase contrast and a positive phase contrast. With lighting from the epilumination, polarization, fluorescence. That covers pretty much everything. It's basically just greetings, and that he bought himself with a used, but it looks like almost like new microscope, which has basically all of the contrasting techniques that you want to have, and he's very happy with that. Yeah. I know that for astrophotography, the shape and number of the attachments matter a lot. With wavy ones giving few distortions, I wonder if it matters here too. I know from astrophotography, from astronomy, that you had a whole variety of different types of eyepieces, the Plössls, and I don't know what they were called, Kela eyepieces and so on. You don't have that so much in microscopy, really. Yeah. Yeah. Generally, in microscopy, what you do is you get yourself a microscope with a setup with all of the objectives you want, and usually there is not so much fiddling about. Yeah. Yeah, but I don't know about with wavy ones giving few distortions. So these are basically, yeah, in microscopy you have those so-called the plan objectives, then you have got the achromat objectives, the apochromat objectives, yeah, it's similar to astronomy as well. Yeah, yeah, that's basically the diametrically adjusted patch stops. I talked about this. Darkfield condenser is a real thing if they have those that actually have built-in mirrors. Yeah, can I get Darkfield to work on my 58 times objective pretty well? But I do have to close the iris on the objective so that there is lots of resolution. Okay, yeah. I think now I have a perfect image. Okay, my experience, the diameter. I talked about this. About gradient filters, yes, I answered those questions as well. Good. And I found that many shiny dark patches. Yes, that's especially a problem with the reflection. So let me quickly, that's the camera system that I want to talk about. The Raspberry Pi camera. It's explained what the Fluortar objective is. Thank you. Okay. Yeah, with Darkfield, the slide for oil objectives, cooking oil. Okay, there has been a book recommendation which I didn't know about. Okay, thank you for the recommendation. So let me talk a little bit about this question over here. I have to cough again. I'm going to quickly turn off the audio. So here we go again. Okay. I would say the model of the DSLRs that I'm using is not so important. The reason why I've got a Canon camera, historical reasons, because that's what I've had before, but also because for Canon and for Nikon cameras, it is fairly easy to get so-called T2 adapter rings. And a T2 ring, and especially those people who are also into astrophotography might know this, a T2 ring allows you to connect a camera. You know what I'm going to do is I don't need it anymore, so I'm going to simply take off this camera here that I have on my here, and I'm going to explain this to you. Move everything here. So that's basic. So that is the smaller camera, the one that's it's a D200. Okay. And let me move this up here. Yeah. And here, this is a pretty low cost microscope adapter, not perfect. It works. It does a little bit of distortions, but it's okay. Yeah. And this is a T2 adapter ring, which is basically camera specific. Yeah. So if you have any DSLR camera, you just have to make sure that yeah, you've got one of those T2 rings. Yeah, and it goes on here, and then you can connect a telescope, for example, or an adapter for a microscope or whatever. Okay, so what I've done now is the following. This camera I had connected over over USB. There's a USB port over here. Okay, and I put it into the computer, and then I had a driver, the Canon driver, Canon webcam driver, and that's basically what you've seen. However, my other camera, which is a Canon D90, I connected over HDMI. And then I had an HDMI to USB converter. Why that? The reason is because the USB 2 over here generally is too slow to give me a fast frame rate. Yeah. So I found that I got a more reliable and faster connection over USB. Okay, it also works. Okay, but yeah, I just simply decided over to HDMI, and then I've got another camera over there, an industrial camera, I have to take this one off. I'm going to show you. This one is connected to my stereo microscope. Okay, and that's a purely an HDMI camera. This is connected with a C-mount, and this one here is a reduction optic which I obtained separately. And this one is only connected over HDMI and then over an HDMI to USB converter. And why am I using this one here? I'm using this here because it's small, compact, okay, and it works. It only gives me a very low resolution of HDMI, full HD, so I cannot take high resolution images. However, this camera has an issue, not an issue, simply that's a thing that all small sensor cameras have. It has a fairly low dynamic range. So this means I tried first this camera to show you those dark field images, and it was impossible to see any details. Yeah. So for example, the water flea was completely white, and I tried to adjust the contrast, but yeah, I was not able to get any details out because the camera itself was not able to cover the full range from bright to all the way to black. Yeah. So for normal microscopy, it works perfect. Right? Yeah. But as soon as you're reaching the limits of brightness and darkness, those small sensor cameras they have a much too lower dynamic range. And those DSLR cameras that you have here, yeah, they have a huge sensor in size and they have a much larger dynamic range and are able to actually see the images much more like when you're looking through the eyepieces. Yeah. So, and this is the reason why I think for the near future, cameras are not able to replace those eyepieces, because the human eye with eyepieces still has the biggest dynamic range. So we're able to see darkness and brightness, and we're able to see clarity in both. And the camera is not able to capture this, especially the low-cost small sensor cameras are not able to capture the full range, dynamic range. Yeah. So you see there is the cameras are not yet able to capture the full picture, so to say. Yeah, so it's not only a resolution question, but it's also a frame rate question and also a dynamic range question. And DSLR cameras have a little bit more, how do you say, because of the large sensor, they have much more, how do you say, tolerances, yeah, for extremes. Yeah. So I'm quickly going to, yeah. Yes, T2 rings are available for the Sony E-mount cameras. Just be careful that the T2 ring has looks different also for the mirrorless cameras, because the mirrorless cameras, they have the sensor much further in the front. This means that the T2 adapter ring is also much thicker, because it's also the distances have to be standardized. So just make sure that if you, yeah, so that's the thing. Do you use the EOS utility to manage the camera remotely? In this case here, I used not the EOS or utility, but the EOS webcam utility. That's how it's called. It's just a driver. Yeah. I've also done this before. I've also used the utility to actually take pictures and so on directly, no problem. But what I now do in most of the cases is if I want to take high quality images, I directly take them still on the SD card, because I just want to have the full resolution and actually focus looking through the camera and everything, and then I simply release the shutter to actually capture the image directly on the camera. If I want to do any videos or for my YouTube channel or so, I just record it over the computer directly into OBS Studio using full HD. Okay, so I've tried all possibilities. I think there's no better or worse way to do that. Yeah. Currently, I'm using a C-mount to the Sony E-mount adapter. So the C-mount, I just also want to show this to you. By the way, it's actually something that I also wanted to, so I'm going to put this away. What is the C-mount? So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to disconnect the photo tube from a microscope, from the Swift, because I want to show this to you here. So this one here is now 23.5 millimeters for eyepieces. What I'm doing right now is I'm removing this here. Okay. And what I can do is I can connect this industrial camera here. Look, I can also take this away. And I can now, this one is connected to the microscope, and I could actually now connect the camera directly also to the microscope like this. So this would be the so-called a C-mount connection. Yeah, or if you want to have it over the eyepieces, yeah, then yeah, that's basically the regular photo tube. Then you have to connect this reduction lens, and then you can put it in here, yeah, as well. Yeah, so there are different possibilities. So why would you go over a reduction lens and not connect it directly? The reason is because in this case, depending on the reduction lens that you use, you're getting a wider field of view. Yeah. So in this case, has the disadvantage, however, that you're passing the light again through some optics, which might degrade the quality. Yeah, if you connect it directly, yeah, like this, if you connect it directly to the microscope, then what you have is you have the objective directly projecting the image on the sensor, yeah, which might give you a better image quality, but the problem is that the image will appear larger. So basically it adds a zoom factor because this lens actually is a reduction lens which gives you a wider field of view. So what happens when you directly connect it, you're actually magnifying yet a smaller piece of the center of the image, which you might or might not want to have. Yeah. So I just wanted to show this to you that I've been experimenting with all sorts of things, and I settled now for the following because that has the overall, for me at least, the overall best results. I'm using this camera for my stereo microscope, yeah, and I'm using the D90 camera, a DSLR camera for my big microscope. And if I want to do some other things, then I just connect it over the system here, and it also works. Yeah. So there is no perfect system. There's no single system. You just have to figure out a little bit what works with you and what you feel most comfortable with. Yeah. Generally, I would say that the image quality with DSLRs is definitely better. Yeah. However, it's also a little bit more cumbersome to get it connected to a microscope. Yeah, and it's bulkier. Yeah. So it's, you see, there is no ideal solution here. Yeah. There is also a CS mount, and it's almost impossible to find an adapter CS to C mount. As a matter of fact, honestly, I think if I'm correctly informed, that is, I can't get it off, but there is a little ring here. The CS to C mount is actually nothing more than a little extension ring, which basically simply shifts the distance. Yeah, and that's actually all you need, and they're quite easy to get. Yeah, because the diameter is the same. It's only a 5 millimeter, I think, ring that's actually converts from CS to C. I don't know why this is there, but essentially I've got actually 2 of these rings because it helps me adjust also the focus this way. Yeah, so this CS with C from should be possible. Yeah. Okay. I've got, I think, answered everything. Yeah, T2 rings, get a better answer, Darkfield. Okay. Yeah, it's already 1 hour, 23 minutes anyway. Yeah, so in summary, let me put this back again on my stereoscope. Yeah. And what I'm also, in summary, the original plan was for me to actually remount those slides, which really failed because of the way that they're prepared. I couldn't get them off. So I decided I'm going to talk a little bit today about those filters that I've been making and still working on. And that's the next project is to work a little bit on gradient filters as well. And by the way, a couple of months ago, someone in the community sent me, thankfully, also some of these homemade filters. Please check the streams because it's possible, and I can also show you this. It's possible to also use hole punchers, and if you get yourself foils like this, you can. These are basically for lamps. Okay, then you can also try to make your own filters by punching out the different things here, and then you can also make different color combinations. Yeah, so this is there are plenty of possibilities. how you can do that. And the next task that I would like to do is I'd like to work a little bit on experimenting with gradient filters as well. And that's also one of the reasons why I tried to 3D print those. But I don't know. I'd have to think a little bit of how I can actually get a gradient in here from one color to another color. So, leather, using a leather maker's hole punch set. Yeah, so, yep. So it depends on the maximum video resolution of your camera versus the maximum photo resolution. Yes, yeah. It's a trade-off for. Okay, yeah. Okay, lots of comments. Yeah. So what I'm going to do is the following, folks. I'm thinking a short announcement, organizational announcement. I don't know yet whether I have time next Saturday. I might have another appointment. If this is the case, then I'm going to move the live stream probably to Sunday. Okay. I found out that preparing a video is also quite a bit time consuming, and I like actually the interactivity and the spontaneity. Yeah. For this reason, if for whatever reason it's not possible for me to do it in 1 week on Saturday, then I'll try to do it on Sunday. Okay, 24 hours later. It's as always, it's going to be announced in the trailer. So there's going to be a countdown timer. I'm going to leave it at that for today again. Thank you very much for commenting. Okay, I'm always thinking of smaller projects. And maybe one of the next projects would be indeed where I'm going to try to prepare different foods that I find in the supermarket for microscopy. Okay, I'm going to call it a day for today. Actually, not a day. It's actually quite dark already. It's almost it's 11 o'clock at night where I am right now. Yeah, I wish you in any case all the best. Okay, thank you that you've joined in again. I think, yeah. If you have any additional comments that you want to make after the video, there is a comments section below as well, so where you can also post something. Yeah, and I wish you all the best. Happy microbe hunting as always. Okay, and hope to see you again in a week. Okay, bye bye.